Hello and welcome. Here are ways to become a supporter of the channel. Thank you and enjoy.
3, 2.
Parents of TikTok, what is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
So my mom passed away when I was 11 years old. My daughter was born on my mom's birthday. At the time she was 5, we were eating at Whataburger. I had took her to eat after school. She was playing in the little play area, and then she just came to sit down and she was looking at me like this, just staring at me. So I smiled and I just gave her a smile back, and I will never forget this day in my life. She looks at me and she says, "Hey, do you know I'm your mom?" And I was like, "No, I'm your mom." And then she said, "Well, yeah, I know you're my mom, but I'm your mom." And I had never ever been so freaked out in my life. And she says, "I'm your mom." And I said, "No, no, no, I'm your mom." And she looks at me again and she says, "No, I'm telling you I'm your mom." And I didn't know what else to say. I just looked at her, and then she just looked at me again and she says, "I don't know what happened." And I said, "AJ, what do you mean?" She's like, "I don't know what just happened. I don't remember." And then she just takes off running back into the play area.
What is something wildly reality bending that your kid has randomly said to you? I'll go first. These are from my comments from my last video. This one says, "Ugh, my son used to scream at me and tell me I wasn't his mother, that his real mom and 17 brothers were in outer space fighting a war, so they sent him. My daughter said I was your twin, but decided to go back and wait to be your daughter instead. I learned that my mom lost a twin in utero. My daughter is 4 years old. Her dad passed away in March. Sometimes she points at nothing and gets excited and says, 'Look, it's Papa, he's here.' So can some kids just see spirits? My parents said I was about 18 months old and barely talking, but I said in an English accent, 'It is unbeknownst to me, but I've been here once before.'" Why is that so funny? Imagine a kid less than 2 saying that. "I've been here before." Tap here to read more of the comments, follow for more reality bending stuff, and Stitch to tell your story.
What is the creepiest thing your kid ever said?
When my daughter was 3, she came in my room in the middle of the night, woke me up and said, "Mommy, can you please get the little girl out of my room?" And I'm sleeping. I'm like, "What little girl?" She's like, "The little girl, she's jumping on my bed. She wants to play with me. She won't get out of my room." I'm like, "Oh, just sleep with me." So she slept with me. The next day, I didn't think anything of it. Then she comes to me and says, "I'm so sick of Daddy moving my toys around in my dollhouse. He comes in my room and plays with my dollhouse and moves them all around." I'm like, "I highly doubt your father's doing that. He probably banged into it by accident, making your bed or something." This went on for pretty much every morning. Somebody's rearranging my dollhouse. Didn't think anything of it at all. The only reason I thought of it was because one night, me and my husband come in from outside, and our oldest daughter comes and says, oh my gosh, Mom, Dad, the freakiest thing just happened." And we're like, "What?" And she's like, "I came downstairs and Jen was in the kitchen. And then I see her walk by, so I walk to follow her in her room to see if she's okay. And I see her in her bed sleeping. But she was just walking. So I wanted to make sure that she wasn't tricking me. So, I tried to wake her up, but she was sleeping. She wasn't joking. "I think I saw a ghost." And I'm like, "Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Jennifer said there was a little girl in her room. I wonder, So the next day I say to Jennifer, "Jennifer, what does the little girl look like?" And she said, "She has long blonde hair, blue eyes, and she's white. She looks like me." Okay, because my daughter had long blonde hair, blue eyes, and I said, "Is she your age?" And she said, "No, she's younger than me. She's probably 2 or 3. Now, my daughter was 4, maybe 4.5. So I'm like, holy crap. So, I'm on the phone with my mom and my sisters, and I'm like, I'm freaking out, and I'm like, what the hell do I do? And my sister reminds me, I trash picked that damn dollhouse, like right when this whole thing started going. But you don't notice little things, right? I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I brought a spirit into my house by trash picking this like handmade built dollhouse I thought was beautiful. Like, oh, so and that's the dollhouse the furniture was being arranged in. Her furniture. It didn't come with furniture. I just trash picked the dollhouse. Anyway, long story short, we ended up burning the dollhouse in the fire pit to try to get rid of the spirit. And then maybe 6 months later, my daughter comes to me and says, oh my gosh, Mom, we burned that little girl's dollhouse, and then she burned our house down because we were living in a hotel because our whole entire house burned down. Coincidence or creepy crawly? I have no idea.
Parents of TikTok, what is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
I have so many of these, but this one is by far the creepiest one. So when my son was about 3 years old, I was changing his diaper in my bedroom the one day. And he told me, he was like, Mom, there's a man with black eyes standing behind you. And I was just like, okay. It's like I look over my shoulder and of course nothing is there. And I'm just like, jokingly, I was just like, well, there better not be a man with black eyes standing behind me or else I'm going to be performing an exorcism up in here. Said it as a joke. He's 3. He's not going to know what an exorcism is. And he just says, he's just like, Mom, he's screaming at you. He's screaming at you.
What is the creepiest thing your child has ever said to you?
Well, she's definitely said a few things, but the one that I can't get over is when she came to me really confused and was like, Mommy, what did my name used to be? I said, well, your name's always been Aspen. She goes, no, like a long time ago. I was like, well, even when you were a baby, your name has always been Aspen. She goes, no, I mean when I was older. And then she starts to describe her being older because obviously I'm confused. She's like, when I had gray hair, when I was older, when I used to live in the woods. She's like, remember when I used to make potions? Okay, my 4-year-old does not know what potions is. She's never seen Harry Potter. She has no idea about like witchcraft or anything. My 4-year-old said potions when she used to make potions in the woods when she had gray hair. I'm like, baby, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, remember when those people on horses would come to me and they would have to find me so I could make the death potions for the king? What? I'm just sitting there like, okay. And she's very aggravated. Still to this day, she is very aggravated that I don't know what her name used to be. Because she tells me often that she really liked that name, but she can't remember what it is. Also, she's told me on a separate occasion that my baby, her younger sister, that they used to be sisters, but they didn't like each other back then. But now she's happy that she's her sister again because now she likes her this time. I don't know.
Parents of TikTok, what is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
One of the creepiest things that my kid has ever said to me, the youngest one is typically the most creepy one. I think at the time he was like 4, and he's telling the story of how he came from heaven to earth and the fact that he got to see his life as it unfolded or before it unfolded in heaven, right? So he's telling the story. He's talking about all of us at first, and then he goes into his adulthood, telling me what's going to happen. He's talking about his big sister, his big brother, his daddy. And then I realized, like, wait a minute. He ain't mentioned me in a minute. So I asked him, like, hey, what about me? And he says, oh, you died about the time I stopped growing. So I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yeah, like you didn't rest enough, you didn't eat good enough, and so, yeah, you died. So don't worry, though, we'll remember you. But anyway, and then he keeps talking like nothing happened. Help me.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
So I was pregnant and my daughter said, so since you lost this baby, are we going to get another baby? And I just was talking on the phone to my friend. I'm like, creepy, did you hear what my kid just said? And she's like, that is so weird. Didn't really think too much of it. I just thought it was a creepy thing little kids say. But then the next day we were at Aldi's and I said, hey, isn't this fun? Soon you're going to have a little brother or sister to sit beside you in the cart because it's like a double seat for children. And she said, oh, so you're going to get another baby since you lost this baby? And my husband heard it that time, and we just like changed the subject, but it creeped me out because she said it twice. And we actually found out that was like on a Sunday, and we found out on Monday that we did lose our baby. So now she says anything like, hey, be careful out driving. I don't want you to get in a wreck. I feel like I'm going to die, because she was right one time.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Probably the most creepiest thing that my son ever said to me was when he was about 3 years old and we were in the car, and he said, Mom, I used to have a different life. When my old dad got mad at me, he pulled over the car and threw me over a bridge and I died. And he said, I remember everything. I just couldn't tell you when I was born. But God let me pick my new parents, and I picked you.
Of TikTok. What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Y'all ready for this? Now, I've told y'all I have 2 sisters. I'm the oldest. There are 3 of us, and we're all girls. Now, what I never told y'all was that my father was married before he married my mother, and he had a daughter with that woman, but that baby died. Mind you, I'm the oldest of my dad and my mother's kids. My father had no previous children before that daughter who died. And according to my dad, she died while she was being born. Now, I got older. I think I wasn't even 10 years old. And my dad was telling me about this story. He was telling me how, he had another little girl before me, but she died. And he said, had she not died, he probably would have stayed with that mother and would have had a family with her. I looked at my father and told him, yeah, I know. That's why I left. I didn't want her to be my mom.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
This one would not be my kid. This would be some random child in, it was a Sears, some sort of department store. Anyway, we'll just say Sears for the sake of the story. Anyway, so this little girl runs up to me and gives me a great big hug. And she says, Daddy, I missed you. And there's a mom and a dad. And they're both looking at me and looking at each other, looking at the kid. And the mom says, honey, that's your daddy. She says, no, he was my daddy before. In my last life, before you were my mommy, he was my daddy. And he said, then I'm like, the fuck? And she goes, okay, Daddy, I gotta go now. I love you, bye. And I'm like, bye, kid. That memory still bothers me.
Parents of TikTok. What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
This trend belongs to my aunt, but she's not on TikTok, so here you go. My mom and I were moving into a new house, so my aunt and my cousin came to help us. After making a few trips inside, my 6-year-old cousin takes a seat on a stump in the front yard. He then turns and looks at the 3 of us out of the blue and says this place was built on an Indian burial ground. Once he saw the looks of what the fuck set into all 3 of our faces, he then began to hysterically cry and ran to my aunt. Looking back, we really should have loaded our shit back up and left. For the following 12 months, my sister was thrown down the stairs. I had a very large something get in my bed with me. I had a big green head floating outside my window. The fabric non-electrical angel on our Christmas tree caught fire. We had a random message pop up on our answering machine of a mother beating her daughter with no missed calls on any of the caller IDs. Long story short, we ended up going to the local library and finding out it was built on a burial ground.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Well, I was in bed with my 3-year-old reading her a bedtime book, and she said, here are those black people. I'm like, what black people? She's like, the black people with the red eyes, right there. And she points, and I look, and I say, there's nobody there. And she says, you can't see them? I'm like, no. And she's like, they're right there. I'm like, what are they doing? She's like, there's a line of them. They're just walking by and disappearing into the wall. They come every night. You really can't see them? I mean, she's 3.5. She was flabbergasted that I couldn't see them. I immediately ripped that child up, put her in my bed, and then I slept with the full light, not a nightlight, a full light for over 4 years. I mean, and she continued to see them until she was about 5 or 6, and she still remembers seeing them to this day.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
So this is more a nonverbal communication, but when my son was 8 months old, he and I were at lunch alone together at this diner. And then we had this male server. He was a little bit older, Caucasian guy, seemed really normal, polite, but my son would freak out. Like he'd never freaked out like this before. Freaking out every time the guy came by our table. Ultimately, I had to leave the restaurant because he just could not be around this person. A month later, that person made the front page and was arrested on multiple accounts of child molestation.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Okay, so thing 7,552 of the weird things my child has said to me. Last night, which she really doesn't say a whole lot of weird things now that she's getting older, but last night, we were watching a movie and she said, she's like, Mommy, I'm just so glad that you'll always be alive. And I was like, okay. She's like, no, even when you're dead, you'll still be alive because then you'll be an angel. And I was like, okay. And she's like, but not me. I don't ever turn into an angel. I always get to come back. She goes, I don't know why though. And I was just like, come back where? She goes, I don't know. I just don't think you understand. And she's like, just forget about it. Just don't worry about it.
What is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Nah, this story time is crazy. So let's rewind like 3 months ago. You know, it's a Sunday, so I wasn't working. I was actually home watching TV in the living room. 30 minutes go by, my 5-year-old son comes storming into the living room talking about, Dad, call Mom. She's hurt. She got into a car accident. I'm like, yo, what are you talking about? At this point, I called her and everything. You know, she's fine. She's good. Nothing happened. Now she's just concerned at this point. So I sort of just brushed it off because it's like, all right, kids is just making up story time or whatever. Anyways, a week go by and she actually gets into a car accident. At this point, I'm just creeped out because what happened the week before? Yo, I go straight to Andre talking about, how did you know something like that was going to happen? This little boy said, Grandma came to me at night and told me what was going to happen.